brings back memories, really. I always think about that song on New Year's Day. And the funny thing about it is MTV, from the moment it launched, see what it did to popular music, you know? But that bass line, I want to just talk about it just for a minute. It's super simple, but it's all about his rhythm. He plays it so many different ways over the years. So when I first started playing it, I would play it right here. So I would start there, but he does it always. He starts it here, but he changes it up. Adam Clayton, by the way, from U2. Now, I don't know why he played it that way. That's the way he played it in the late 90s, early 2000s. He played it that way. I really prefer to play it. I will be with you again. I love that song. I cannot get enough of that song. Anyway, back to MTV. I just want to talk about MTV for a minute, because when War was released, for me, it was like the peak of the MTV era. I know that it would go on to get even larger, but it's funny because MTV really went out with a whimper. Really, they did. And the reason they went out with a whimper is because people had already accepted that they died in the early 90s. So really, MTV died from the moment that The Real World came out, that reality TV show. But without The Real World, we may not have YouTube as we know it, because The Real World kind of showed us how people act when they just are left to their own devices with cameras rolling. It was like watching a disaster in real time. That type of culture and just showing raw video and people's raw emotions, it had a huge impact on the world. Really, the last big cultural shift musically, like everyone talks about it, it was the Nirvana situation. I guess I shouldn't call it a situation, but when Nirvana blew up, it was just like, what? Right? I mean, they took over everything, and you've all heard this story before, so I won't dive deep into it. But the funny thing about the whole grunge movement and Nirvana's popularity, unlike any of the other trends before, really the main casualty of the grunge movement was the metal scene. And I really felt like it was very, very unfair. Like, it was wrong. If it weren't for MTV, I wouldn't have gotten into metal the way I did. You know, it was, honestly, I started to see those videos showing up on MTV. I was a Quiet Riot fan. I was a Twisted Sister fan. Now I'm getting into how I got into metal, but it was MTV that delivered me into metal. But I had a very, very strong appreciation for things that were underground. It was very important when I was growing up and I was out there skateboarding and hanging out with punks and metalheads and you name it. The word poser got thrown around quite a bit. Like, if you really didn't walk the walk, you were crucified publicly. Like, you really had to get into it. And fortunately for me, I absolutely loved everything about, metal, punk, and all that kind of stuff. Like, I really was a musician who truly loved everything about music that I was hearing, no matter which genre it was coming from. I can find something I like in every single genre. I do not single anything out. MTV, their demise, to jump back to MTV, it came 3 decades ago. It really did. It was over in the 90s, because the moment they started doing shows like Remote Control, which involved music and videos, but still, the moment they started doing game shows, it was already, the writing was on the wall for me. I was like, oh man, if I couldn't turn that channel on and always see music videos running 24/7 like I did from like 1981 to roughly 1987, then it wasn't worth it to me. It changed the medium for all of us. So rest in peace to MTV. Everyone needs to understand that we wouldn't have what we have right here with YouTube if it weren't for MTV. Does that make sense? Because there's a lot of things that I was doing as a kid that I never thought would amount to anything. Like I never thought that you could run a channel playing video games. But guess what? I was literally the first person that I never knew anyone else growing up who had a VCR connected to the Nintendo or the ColecoVision or the Sega Master System and recorded my video games so that I could prove to people, because people would be like, you didn't solve that game. Like, I got the tape to prove it. I was recording prank calls with my friends in the mid 80s, in 1985, 86. I was recording prank calls. Who knew that the Jerky Boys would come around? I used to clown around with my friends on camera, and I have all this stuff. It's all, but I've shown you guys the tapes in other videos. I've got all this stuff on 8mm and cassette tape, but who knew that there would be a jackass? I would have my parents, mainly my dad, telling me that I wouldn't amount to anything if I just enjoyed my life and clowned around with my friends. But MTV proved him wrong and many other parents wrong. Growing up in this time and seeing all the things that I've seen, I wouldn't change a bit of it. You know, my son asked me the other day, if you could be my age today, 16, would you rather be my age today in today's times, or would you rather go back, basically 1990? I wouldn't change any of it. I wouldn't change any of it. Dark-skinned man in the South, still, I loved my youth. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I made lots of great friends. I had lots of great times. And MTV was the backdrop to that. MTV and metal, the underground scene, and video games and all that stuff was the backdrop to my youth. And I am grateful for it. So as we go to kick off this new year, I just wanted to reach out to you guys. I hope all of you had great New Year's Eve into New Year's Day celebrations. You know, I've played outside several times. I've played at festivals, you name it, you know, South by Southwest, but I've never played in a climate as cold as we played last month. We played out in mid-December on a day that it quickly dropped to, I think, 24 degrees Fahrenheit. And it was dropping as we were out there. My hands couldn't move. And I used to always watch that New Year's Day video and think to myself, man, you two, those guys are tough out there playing in the snow. I don't know how you could do that. But what's funny is your hands start to, it's really bizarre, but my hands were killing me. Like they were tingling because they were so numb and I'm out there playing. I even had like the fingerless gloves on, but my hands, they were like ice blocks, right? But then out of nowhere, probably about, I'd say about 20 minutes into the jam, my hands just unlocked. I could just play like it was no problem. It was really weird. And just when all that was happening, some idiot came and shut us down. Sorry to do the name calling, but this guy was a total douchebag. And, you know, he said that we were on private property because we set up off of the Beltline in Atlanta. There's like, the Beltline is like this really popular walking path. The thing that I could, if for those people who are out west, like Venice Beach, they have that pathway. That's kind of like Atlanta's Venice Beach walkway pathway where people are cycling, rollerblading, walking. Or up in New York, there's this thing called the North, God, I can't believe I'm forgetting the name of it, but it's a really cool path that goes through Manhattan and it's elevated and everything. The Beltline in Atlanta is like that. It's like, brings a lot of people together. There's a lot of real estate off of it and a lot of retail. And people are playing music all through there. So I've always wanted to do that, and I had a lot of fun doing that with him. So we played out there that one day in super cold temperatures, as I said, and it was awesome. It was a lot of fun. The main point of this video was just discussing my thoughts on MTV and what it meant to me growing up as a kid. It came at the right time, and we saw a lot through MTV, and it was a very important backdrop, and it was a trendsetter in a lot of ways. And there were a lot of things that it did that were negative and that kind of hurt the music industry. When I stopped watching MTV, I also stopped listening to the radio. I got more into things like Soma FM, became something I would listen to all the time because 88.5, which was WRAS here in Atlanta, that was like my go-to. And there was also Rec, WREK, which had Wreckage, which played a lot of underground thrash metal. That was the other thing I mentioned, forgot to mention about the metal, how I got into metal. After a while, I started watching Headbangers Ball And then I started discovering, with the help of my good old friend Dylan, who turned me on to Nuclear Assault, I dove headfirst into thrash metal, and it was a whole different world. And honestly, in my opinion, a better world. There are a lot of bands from the metal era, of course, Rat, that I love. And I know people call them hair metal, whatever you want to call them, but Rat is awesome. But yes, the thrash metal, once I got into that, I've never really fully committed to any other genre of music the way I committed to thrash metal, for real. It changed my life, as well as Cliff Burton made me see this instrument in a way that still to this day means everything to me. So anyway, if you guys are still here, I want to thank you for watching this whole video, and please share your thoughts with me. Tell me what your favorite genre of music is. I want to know. I love having these discussions with you guys. You can't share enough of it. Trust me, I'm reading all of your stuff. Even you guys who write the big, long comments, I promise you I read all of your stuff, and I greatly appreciate you guys chatting with me. It is the #1 benefit to doing this channel. I hope you guys have a great 2026. See you in the next video.